Hey y'all, buckle up. We got a little bit of a longer lesson today, but the concept is pretty straightforward, and you've probably seen these before, so we can knock through these. And of course, pause this anytime you need to and go, run around your house screaming and pulling your hair out every 10 minutes or so if you want to. And I'll be here waiting for you. Okay. An exponent is basically this. We have something like, let's say it is 10, we'll say to the second power. This number here is called the base. This number here is called an exponent. Okay, and what this means is this means you're going to use the number 10 as a factor twice. So let's say you had, in other words, this is the same thing as 10 times 10. It just saves us space and saves us time writing this. Imagine, having to go, well, look at this. I figured out the answer to this equation. It's, 3 times 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 3. Just keep going. Number one, it takes up so much space in a book, it's ridiculous. And number two, if somebody's sitting there maybe hurrying a little bit and miscounts or whatever, let's see my chemicals in the laboratory, we're going to do this, and oh, this is really dangerous. Well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, okay, 9. Okay, so you're all, blown to smithereens or whatever. Okay, way easier way to do this is to say, we got 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, so we're going to go 3 to the 10th power, which is a big number. Just saves space and cuts down the number of errors. Okay. All right. Well, let's do a couple of these and simplify is the directions you're going to see in your book. 3 to the second power means 3 times 3. In other words, 3 is a factor twice, which will give you 3 times 3, as we all know, is 33. No, don't write that. It's 9. Okay. 3 to the third power means this. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. 3 to the fourth power is like this. Now, I want to remind you this. If you can visualize this part, I'd visualize it. And don't forget that you can take factors and put them in any order you want. So if I were you, man, you're going 27 times 3. Oh, let me do that over here. No, don't do that. Just take this chunk times that chunk. You all know 9 times 9 is 99. No, it's not. It's 81. Okay. This is kind of weird. This doesn't mean you're going to multiply -3 by itself. We'll get into that in just a second. But this means you are going to take this first and finish it. We know the answer is 81 already because we just did it. After you're done with that, you're going to apply this negative sign to that. So the answer is opposite of 81 or -81. All right? And let's look at this. These make sure that you know the difference between the ones you see on this screen here. What this really means when you see -3 in parentheses squared, what we're actually saying is we're going to multiply -3 times -3, right? And we know a negative times a negative is a positive, and that would be 9, positive 9. This one here, you can go ahead and do this out if you'd like to. -3 times -3 times -3, right? We know this part here. Well, first off, there are 3 negative signs, 1, 2, 3. So we know the answer will be, negative, because these two will kind of cancel out each other and make positive. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, so there is your answer. All right, -3 to the fourth power means, again, you're going -3 times -3 times -3 times -3. You can get to a point where you don't have to write all this out, but it's okay, as we're doing it right now. We know that's positive 9, right? Negative times a negative. We know that's also positive 9, negative times a negative. 9 times 9, 81, boom, you're done. This looks kind of funky. This kind of stuff can look complicated and intimidating. Don't let it get to you. Just be careful with your negatives. Go ahead and write an extra line where you're working this out yourself, taking very great care to do it correctly, and you'll be totally fine. All right, so let's take a look at D. And that looks pretty complicated, right? There's a little exponent, there's a negative sign, there's parentheses, all that jazz. Okay, just take care of this first. Forget that for right now. We know the answer, -3 times -3 times -3 times -3 is 81, right? After you're done with that, go ahead and apply this negative to the answer. There you go. And you'll check your answers in your solutions manual, and you'll start seeing these, and you'll start catching, oh yeah, this would be this, I'm doing, okay, yeah, I see what they're doing. And then a couple of weeks, months go by, you'll be fine with it. Okay, let's take a look at another one. Go ahead and pause and copy. All right, again, these look, horribly complicated, but just take very special care to make sure you're correctly writing your negatives and you're doing your arithmetic right. Let's take the first part. This is the opposite of 2 to the third power. And again, I want you to ignore this negative right now. What is 2 to the third power? That means 2, don't say 6 because it's not 6. Doesn't mean 2 times 3. It means 2 as a factor 3 times, which means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Once you've found that, go ahead then and apply the negative to it. That's the correct answer. All right, let's go ahead and bring down the negative here, and we'll take care of this next. And if you'd like to, over here you can go, okay, what is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2? Well, this part is a positive 4, correct? And if we bring this down, that's going to be times negative 2. Well, the answer to this is negative 8, right? So we can just put this in parentheses if you want to, negative 8. Then plus this part. What is negative 3 times negative 3? And the answer is, of course, 9. There we go. Now, we've seen ones like these. We've seen expressions. You've done these in your book, right? Many times already. So let's go ahead and just do it again. All we've done is do one little extra step to get to a point to looking at an expression like the ones you've done many times before. All right? Well, we have negative 8, and then the opposite of negative 8 will be positive 8, right? And then plus 9. Well, look, those cancel out, right? We're done. The answer then will be just positive 9, or just 9 if you want to call it that. All right? Pause and copy here. Make sure you do it very accurately. All right, let's do it again. And we're going to ignore the negative right now and go, what is 2 to the third power? 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Now, let's put the negative on. They're right there. All right, I'm going to just copy this negative, and I'll put the 2 there, and I'll work on this right now. Well, what is negative 4 times negative 4? Well, 4 times 4 is 16, and a negative times a negative is a positive. There we go. We got it. I'll copy down this negative. I'll copy down the 2, and we'll take care of the parentheses first and exponents. By the way, we're doing parentheses and exponents. Remember the parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, and subtract? That's what we're doing now. All right? Well, negative 3 times negative 3 is going to be positive 9. Now, I'll copy down that negative 2 there. Okay, now we're in business, right? Well, let's take another color here. All right, I'll just copy down my negative 8, and I'll say, okay, we're going to want to do this next, and then this next, right? Because we're multiplying. That's our next order of operations. So negative 2 times 16, if you do the arithmetic, is going to be negative 32. Now we have negative 2 times 9, that is negative 18, minus 2. And now all of these are negatives, right? So all you need to do is just forget all the negatives, add all the numbers together, and the answer, you're going to take it, make it a negative. So if you do that, 8 plus 32 is 40, then 18 plus 2 is 20. 40 plus 20 is 60, so the answer is negative 60. There you go. All right, let's look at roots. The square root is the opposite, basically, of squaring. So if somebody says to you, for example, let's do it again, 5 squared is 5 times 5, or 25. The opposite, or the inverse of that, would be the square root of 25. And sometimes you'll see a 2 right there to tell you that, oh, what number times itself twice gives you 25? And of course, the answer to that is, again, just 5. The square root of 49 would look like this, the square root of 49. And again, you might sometimes see a 2 there to remind you that it's something multiplied by itself twice. Although most of the time, you will not see anything there. You're not going to see any kind of a number there. They're just going to assume you know that it's a 2 there. What is the square root of 49, by the way? 7, right? 7 times 7 is 49. All right, the cube root of 27, you're going to do very similar to the same thing. All right, there's their radical symbol. There's a 27 underneath it. This time you're going to go ahead and write a 3 there to show you that unlike this, which is just what number twice multiplies by itself and gives you 25, which is 5, you're asking what number multiplied by itself 3 times gives you 27. Well, what number does multiply by itself 3 times to give you 27? It's 3, right? Okay. And by the way, if you ever can't figure out one of these, just start with the integers. Go on this one, you go 1 times 1 times 1, is that 27? No. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8? No. 3 times 3 times 3 is 20. Oh, yeah, that's it. So the answer is 3. There you go. So these will all generally be numbers that are less than 10. All right, the fifth root of 32, same old thing, right? If the cube root of 27 looks like that with a 3, the fifth root of 32 looks like that with a 5. And when you come across this in your book, what you're asking, this is just a shorthand way of saying what number times itself 5 times gives you 32. And again, you might go, oh no, I can't think of that. Well, just go through your integers. Does 1 work? No. 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is still 1. Does 2 work? Well, let's see. 2 times 2, that's 4. Times, that's to the third, 8, and then to the fourth power, 16, and then to the fifth, oh, 32. Yep, that's it. The answer is 2. There you go. So you put 2 as an answer. All right. How to write the 47th root of 1? What's it look like? A radical sign, right? There's a 1 there, and 47. And that's shorthand for saying what number times itself 47 times gives you 1? And the answer, of course, is just 1, right? You can write 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 47 times all the way across here. And after you're done, you'd feel like, you know what? I really wasted a good portion of my entire life doing that. So you wouldn't feel good at all. But you'd know the answer is 1 still. So that's why the answer to that is 1. All right, let's simplify these. Now notice there is no 2 outside that 64. They just assume since there isn't a number there, you know what to do. It's going to be 2. So what number times itself twice gives you 64? And the answer is 8. You should know your times tables. The fourth root of 16, ooh, that means what times what times what times what? 4 times gives you 16. And the answer is 2. Because 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 16. So the answer to this, you wouldn't write all this jazz. You'd just write 2. That's the answer. Now this is kind of weird. What's different about this one? It's negative, right? Okay, so you're going to look at this and go, okay, I got a number times a number times a number, and that's going to give me negative 27. Well, immediately you know what sign does this answer have to be. If you multiply it 3 times and it gives you a negative, this is going to have to be negative, right? Okay, well, we already know that the cube root of 27 is 3, so the answer to this is negative 3. Because if you multiply negative 3 times a negative 3, that's positive 9. But positive 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. The answer, therefore, is this. That's the answer. Now this one, again, this is kind of hanging out there outside of the whole thing. So ignore it, all right? Just ignore it. Take a look at this. That's all we need to keep our eyes on right now. What is the square root of 81? It's 9, right? Once you get this as an answer, you're done, but go ahead and apply the negative to it. Boom, there we go. In other words, we're asking, what's the opposite of the square root of 81? Well, the square root of 81 is 9. The opposite of the square root of 81 is negative 9. Okay. All right. Now we're going to use these in little expressions, and we're going to, plop numbers in here. And they'll ask you things like, what is the value of a to the third times b to the second times c to the fourth? If a is 2, b is 3, and c is negative 1. And all you need to do is create an expression like that. That's all you're going to be doing. You have a's and b's and y's and x's and c's and all that jazz. You'll just be plopping stuff in there and making your own expression like this. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. Well, let's go here. So a to the third power, we would go, a is 2, so you'd say, okay, that's going to be 2 to the third power, and you're multiplying. You can put a dot there, or you can put a parenthesis, or whatever, how you want to handle that. B to the second power, that'll be 3 to the second power, right? And we're going to multiply that by c to the fourth power. So let's multiply that. They say it's negative 1. I'm just going to put parentheses around this just to kind of separate that negative. That's to the fourth power. And I'll stop right there. That makes sense? You're just putting in values for a, b, and c that they tell you they're sitting right there. Well, 2 to the third power is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. 3 to the second power is 3 times 3, which is 9. Negative 1 to the fourth power is negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. All right, so 4 times, that's going to be a positive, it'll be 1. So the answer is 8 times 9 times 1, which is 72. And there you go. All right, let's look at this one. X is negative 2. So what's the value of all of these? Let's take them one at a time. And obviously, if you need to pause and copy, go ahead and do that. All right, well, x squared. To square something means to multiply it by itself. So what you're actually doing when you say x squared, if x is -2, you're saying negative 2 times -2. That's what you're doing. And a negative times a negative is a positive. There's your answer. Okay. On this one, you are ignoring your negative at first. You're going to take care of the x squared first. Take care of that first. X squared, we already saw, was 4. So the answer is 4 for the circled part. After you're done, you go, oh, the opposite of that then would be -4. In other words, they're asking, what's the opposite of x squared? Well, we figured out x squared was 4. The opposite of that is -4. All right, here's another one. The opposite of x cubed. And again, let's take care of this first. All right, well, let's go -2 times -2. Oops, that should be bigger and kind of in the middle there. Times -2. Well, we know this part is 4. 4 times -2 is -8. So that's this part circled. Now we're going to go, they're asking us, what is the opposite of this answer? And the opposite of -8 is +8. And that's it. Now here's a doozy. The opposite of x, well, let's look up here. X is -2. Well, if x is -2, what's the opposite of x? It's +2, right? So what they're actually asking is, what's the opposite of 2? You know, cubed. Well, the opposite of -2 is just plain old 2. 2 cubed is 8. Boom, there's your answer. Done. All right? Pause and copy this one. And, in fact, just try it yourself and see what you get. A squared c cubed b, and there's a, there's b, and there's c. So pause it and try yourself and see what you get, and then unpause when you're ready. Okay, well, a squared, and remember, a number squared means that's the number times itself. So a to the -2 is going to be -2 times itself. C to the 3rd power, and you can put parentheses around these if you want to. C is 2, so you can go 2 to the 3rd power. B is just going to be 3, and again, you can use parentheses if you want. Boom, there's B. B is 3. Got it. Okay, so now we have -2 times -2, which gives us 4. 2 to the 3rd power means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. And then multiply that by 3. And we have 4 times 8 is 32. 32 times 3 is 96. And there you go. That's it. All right, let's try this. Do the same thing if you want to. You can pause it and try it yourself and come back when you're done. And this looks a little different, so let's go ahead and do this together. X, they tell us is 2, so I'm just going to go ahead and put, 2 right there. Y to the 3rd power, that's going to be, I'm just going to put parentheses, that'll be -1 to the 3rd power. And then a minus, copy carefully, be careful with this stuff. Z squared means that squared. So I'm going to put this in parentheses to tell myself that Z squared means -3 times -3. Yoink, right there. Okay. Well, let's do it. -1 to the 3rd power means -1 times -1 times -1, which is -1. All right, so we can just write 2 times -1 if we want to. Then minus, and then, well, what is -3 times -3? The answer is 9, right? So we're just going to replace that with a 9. And we can do 2 times -1 is -2 minus 9. And since those are both the same sign, we just add the absolute value, that's 11. And we take the same sign, and there we go. -11. We got it. Okay. All right, let's try the practice set and knock those out here. We got what? A through F and ooh, H. Okay, a lot of those. So we can try these one at a time if you want to. So pause it and try A. Okay, the meaning of this is -2 times -2, which will give us +4. All right, try B and pause it and come back. All right, the meaning of this is, you're going to hang on to that in a second. They're asking, what's the opposite of 2 squared? What's the opposite of 2 squared? Well, 2 squared is 4. And the opposite of that is -4. This does not mean you're multiplying -2 by -2 like this one did. You see the difference between A and B? This one actually means that whole thing is getting squared, which means times like that. So a negative times a negative is a positive for A. This one just means what is the opposite of 2 squared. There's a difference, okay? That'll become clear to you as the months go on. The long month after month after month goes on. All right, pause it and try C. All right, and again, the same thing happens for this here. Go ahead and hold off on the opposite for a second. 3 to the third power means 3 times 3 times 3. That will give us negative 27. In other words, the opposite of 3 squared is the opposite of 27. Done. All right, then I'm just going to go ahead and put minus to copy this. Excuse me. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So I'll put a 4 there instead, right? All right, then minus, again here, and then 2 squared is 4. So we have, excuse me, 3 negative numbers slopped together. So all we need to do is just add them together. 27 plus 4, 31. 31 plus 4, 35. And that'll be negative 35. Okay. All right. Pause it and try D. Excuse me. Okay. Well, you know, this isn't the easiest thing in the world, but you've got to first off go, well, translate this and go, I'm looking for a number. If you multiply it by itself 3 times, my answer is negative 64. Well, first off, if you multiply a number by itself 3 times, and the answer is a negative, you know doggone well these are going to have to all be negatives, right? So your answer is going to be a negative. So the answer will be negative something. Well, what number times itself 3 times gives you 64? And this is where you need to go ahead and just start trying. 1 times itself 3 times? No, that's 1. 2 times itself 3 times? No, that's 8. 3 times itself 3 times? 27. 4 times itself 3 times? I don't know. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4, if you did the arithmetic over here, 16 times 4. Oh, yep, there it is. So the answer is negative 4. Okay. E, let's go ahead and pause it and try E. Okay, well, again, let's take a look at this. This negative 3 cubed means negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3, which you have probably figured out by now is negative 27. All right, we are going to add now. What is the cube root of negative 27? Of course, the answer is negative 3. So we're going to add negative 3. And don't forget, you know, negative 27 plus negative 3 is the same thing as negative 27 minus 3, which is minus 30, or negative 30, or opposite 30, whatever you want to call it. Okay, pause it and try F. All right, well, let's find out. What is the opposite of 3 squared? Well, 3 squared is 9. The opposite of that is negative 9. All right, we're going to subtract now. What is the cube root of negative 8? Well, what number times itself 3 times gives you negative 8? And the answer is negative 2. All right, plus the square root of 16, which is 4. There we go. Okay, well, let's do this here. We have a negative 9. I'm just going to copy it down. The opposite of negative 2, of course, is positive 2, and plus 4. And negative 9 plus 2 will give us negative 7. Then we're going to add 4 again. Negative 7 plus 4 will be, of course, negative 3. There we go. That's F. All right, pause it and try G. Pause it and try G. All right, this is one of those you have to just be very careful with and do exactly what's written there. X squared means this number here squared. So that means negative 3 times negative 3. So this part here is going to end up being positive 9. All right, z to the third power means this thing multiplied by itself 3 times. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 will give you negative 8. Y, we say, is negative 2. So just multiply by negative 2. All right, well, you have 2 negative factors, which means the answer will be positive. So all you need to do now is just do, 9 times 8 times 2, which is going to be 144. All right, try H. Pause it and try H. And you'll see this in years to come. You'll be very familiar with that. But anyway, pause it and try H. All right, let's take a look at B squared. B squared means negative 4 times negative 4, which will give you a positive 16. I'm just going to go ahead and copy the minus, copy the 4, And then we can do, if you want to do A times C together, you can do that. Or you can just write -3 here, maybe some parentheses, times -5 in parentheses. We can just go ahead and do A times C. What is A times C? What is -3 times -5? Positive 15, right? So we can just write 15 there. Or we could have written a dot, whatever. Okay, order of operations is important. Don't forget. We don't do 16 minus 4. Oh, it's 12. 12 times, no. This is first. Got to do that first. 4 times 15, we find out, is 60. So now we have 16 minus 60. Now this might seem like a big deal, but remember, you have a 16 and you have a -60. Those are opposite signs. You've got to take 60 and subtract 16, which gives you 44. And the question is this a -44 or is it a positive 44? And the answer is -60 has a bigger absolute value, way farther away from 0 than this is. It's negative, so the answer to this is also negative. Okay. All right, hope that helped, and you guys have a great day, and I will see you next time. Happy trails.